Hi, this is Kim with Tainted Pepper, and in this video I'm going to show you some tools and techniques that you can do to help reduce your risk of injury. Now, my sport of choice is triathlons, and with all the cycling and running, I tend to suffer from some common overuse injuries if I don't take the time to stretch and do some myofascial release on a regular basis. Now, myofascial release is just basically deep tissue work, and it's a way to help get those knots out of your muscles. Now, before we get started, I want to make sure you are aware that I am not a physical therapist. If you've read my bio, you know I never made it to medical school, so I am not trained to treat or diagnose injuries. However, what I have learned over the last couple years in seeking treatment from a neuromuscular specialist are some things that I can do either at home or at the gym to help keep my IT band syndrome and my piriformis and all my sciatica issues from flaring up. Now, that reminds me, if you are suffering from some nagging discomfort and pain and you have not had it looked at by a professional, I highly recommend you do so, because the last thing you want to do, as tempting as it may be, is to self-diagnose, because a lot of times where you feel the pain, that is not the source. And if you can, seek out a referral. That's how I found Jesse, the neuromuscular specialist that I work with here in Santa Monica. I have learned so much from him, because not only has he treated my symptoms, he also explained to me where the source of the pain was coming from. And over time, I've learned to become more aware of what was going on in my body, which has allowed me to incorporate these tools and techniques that I'm about to show you into my regular training program. So there's 6 tools that I use. I use a foam roller, a PVC pipe, a softball, a lacrosse ball, 2 lacrosse balls taped together, and my newest find, the miracle ball method. And I spend about 30 to 45 minutes daily. Well, okay, I don't always get to it every single day, especially my rest days, but I do without a doubt spend about 30 to 45 minutes after each bike and run session. Okay, so I know that sounds like a lot, but honestly for me, it's a small price to pay for me to continue doing what I love to do, because honestly, I'm approaching my mid-40s and my body is not as resilient as it used to be. So let's start with the foam roller. This is a pretty common piece of equipment, and you can find information available on how to use it and where to get them. They come in different sizes and different material. Now, I prefer this black foam because it does not lose its shape over time. However, if this is too intense for you, you can find it in softer foam material. Okay, now this is really great for, again, that deep tissue work, especially when you're rolling out all your leg muscles. And that includes your thigh, which is in the front part, your quad. You don't want to forget the IT band. Now, that's that ligament that runs from your hip down to the outside of your knee. And you also use it to roll out your hamstring, your calves, and your front muscle in your shin. That's called the tibialis anterior muscle. You don't want to neglect that as well, because if that starts getting tight, now you have a whole new set of problems with your leg and your foot. However, I use this primarily to roll out my back and to do some back stretches. And I'm going to show you some really easy stretches that you can do. And the great thing about these stretches, they're wonderful for anybody, especially if you do a lot of sitting and standing. Okay, so once I'm on the floor, I place the foam roller at the end of my tailbone, kind of where that sway in your back is. And then what I do is I straighten my legs and just relax. And boy, this is a really good stretch in your low back. And breathe. We don't want to forget to breathe. We want to make sure that oxygen gets into those really tight areas. And now if you want a 2-for-1 special here, this is great that you can do, is bring in one leg, and the leg that's straight, that's going to give a good stretch into your hip flexor. Now, a hip flexor comprises a few different muscles, I think 5 in total, but that is one area you do not want to get tight. So since you're here stretching out your back, you might as well stretch out your hip flexor as well. But back to the low back stretches. Now from here, you can also play around with your foot position. I will also bend my knee, bring them together, and then place your feet, maybe if you're on the mat, the distance of your mat, or perhaps shoulder distance. And boy, you can get a really good stretch in that low back. Now for me, my back gets sore because of cycling, so this is something I absolutely do on a regular basis. And you can hold it maybe 15 seconds. Trust me, sometimes I'm here for a minute. And then what I'll do is I will slowly bring the foam roller inch by inch up my back, and then just continue to do the same thing. Straighten my legs, relax your back, and oh, this is just heaven. Okay, and then once I feel like I've gotten a really good stretch there, again, I'll just continue inch by inch, moving it up. And I have to tell you, every time you place it in a new spot, you get a stretch in a different area. That's what I really like about it. You're getting a nice comprehensive stretch in the low back area. And then once I feel I've gotten to the place where I did a really good job of stretching out my low back, probably once I get the foam roller up to my shoulder blades, then I'll just continue to roll it out. And again, this is something that's just great for anybody. Gotta be honest with you, I've been sleeping on a couch for about 1.5 years, and boy, my low back, it hurts every morning. So this, again, is something I do on a daily basis. And then you just stretch it out. Now, if you notice, I have the small foam roller. That's all I need for what I'm doing. You know, they come in various sizes, as I mentioned. And then I come back up. Now, since we're here, I'm going to show you one other exercise that I want to do that's great for the glutes. Because with all the running, my glutes really get tight. So I kind of just lay myself on the side, on the cheeky part of my glute. We all know what that is. And I will just stretch it out. Now the nice thing about laying on your glute area is you're getting that whole entire butt muscle, which not only incorporates your gluteus maximus, which is your biggest, largest muscle in your butt, but I also get to stretch out that gluteus medius. It's a smaller muscle, kind of lesser known, but you know, if you're a runner, cyclist, you know, if you soccer, any type of movement, that tends to get tight, and you don't want that to get tight. And then again, I just stay here until I feel like I got a really good stretch. That's great. Okay, so there you have it. Now that's the foam roller. Okay, so I want to introduce you to another piece of equipment that's not as common as the foam roller, but it's used in exactly the same way. It's called the PVC pipe, and as you can see, it's hollow, and it's also made of really hard plastic. So that means it's going to be a little bit more intense when you're doing deep tissue work. And I use this just the same way as the foam roller. Actually, I use this instead of the foam roller when I'm rolling out my leg muscles, because after years of using the foam roller, my legs just need a little bit more. So just like you do the foam roller, you want to roll out your leg muscles. And when you're talking about the front, you're talking about your quadricep. That's going to be your largest muscle in the front. And you don't want to forget about that IT band. That's that ligament I was talking about on the side, because once that gets tight, like I said, you're dealing with IT band syndrome, and we don't want that. And make sure you go nice and slow. This is not a time trial. I see so many people rushing through this. The purpose of going slow is you want to make sure you target all those tight muscles and spend the time to make sure they get worked out. Remember those knots I was telling you? That's what you want to make sure you loosen up. And then again, roll on the inside of your thigh. Nice comprehensive deep tissue work on the front part of your leg. And then I actually roll all the way down to the top of my knee. And then all the way back to my hip flexor. And even if this area is tight on you, I will hold it there for a little bit. Okay, and then roll it back out. And then you can also use it on your hamstring. So again, you just want to make sure you go nice and slow, get every ounce of muscle tissue in there. Boy, this feels really good. Even though it's sometimes can be painful, but trust me, after it's over, you're going to thank yourself. And then you want to make sure you get your calves as well. You know, it's a smaller muscle group, but you put them through a lot of work. And I got to tell you, holding yourself up too, that is a work in itself. Whew, it's a good upper body workout. And then I also mentioned rolling out that anterior tibialis muscle, that muscle that's in your shin. Don't want to forget that. Okay. And when you are finding that muscle, make sure you roll on your muscle. Because if you roll on that shin bone, that's going to hurt. And trust me, you're only make that mistake one time. And you roll it out. This is really tight on me. I ran this morning, so this is really tight. So I would actually spend a little more time here. And again, where I find it sore, I'll sometimes hold it there. And then roll it back out. The only thing I don't do on the PVC pipe that I do on the foam roller is roll out my back. You know, because this is made out of hard plastic, it doesn't really feel that good on my skin and bones in the back. So I stick with the foam roller for any type of rolling and stretching. So there you have it, the PVC pipe. It's a great tool if you are ready to upgrade from the foam roller. Now I got mine at Home Depot. It actually still has a sticker on it. It's 2 feet by 4 inches, so the diameter is 4 inches. And this was just a scrap piece that they had pre-cut, but I think you can cut them to any size that you want. You can also get this at a store called Ecology. It's a rehab, medical, fitness type supply store in Santa Monica. And honestly, theirs is going to be a little bit more than what I got at Home Depot, but what makes theirs nice is it comes with a removable foam sleeve. So when you don't want the intensity of the plastic, you can put the foam sleeve back on. And actually that would be really good to roll out your back as well. So it's kind of like having the best of both worlds. So there you have it, the PVC pipe. It's a great upgrade to the foam roller if you get to the point where you feel like you need a little bit more of deep tissue work. Okay, now the softball. For $8, it's an extremely useful tool. Now I primarily use this to roll out my hamstrings after I've had a long run. Because of the shape of it, I'm able to get into those really hard to reach places that I necessarily can't get to when using the PVC pipe or the foam roller. So the benefit of using the softball on an ab bench is it allows you to put your entire body weight on it. So it's going to give you that much more of an intense, deep tissue work. And as you can tell, I have freer range of motion. Now, when you're on the ground, you really don't have the opportunity to move your leg into all these different positions. I also like bending my leg because even rolling on a flexed muscle gives you a whole different type of sensation. And then I'll keep it straight. I also like getting in that area right where your butt and your thigh meet. There's a lot of things happening in there, and it's good to roll that out. So again, being able to get off the ground just allows you to get into those harder to reach areas. And don't forget about the area right above your knee in the back of your leg. That can get really tight too. So if you don't have access to an ab bench or one of those workout benches, that's fine. It's still pretty effective on the floor. So again, you use it just like you would the foam roller or the PVC pipe. You're going to roll out that entire muscle in the back. And it's really nice if you can just move your leg over to the side because you want to make sure you're covering all your bases. And again, I like getting into that area between your butt and your thigh. A lot of activity going on in there. And then you just completely roll it out. And just like the foam roller, go slow. There is no real benefit in racing through this. And I also like to get the gluteus area, that whole entire region from your gluteus maximus to your gluteus medius, which is located right above that maximus. Whew, that thing gets tight, I tell you. And just roll it out. And also, too, it gets into that piriformis area. So again, if these are really tight areas on you, you really want to pay attention. Ooh. It's good stuff, good stuff. And I also use this for my hip flexor area. This is a great myofascial release technique that you can do for it. So again, find that hip flexor area, whatever part is tight on you, against that psoas muscle that we mentioned earlier. So ideally, I will do this myofascial technique first, and then I will stretch it out on the foam roller. And for me, I like to get into my inner thigh, because that's where your groin is. Because that gets tight too. And again, I'll hold it there until you feel that tension subside. And then I'll continue to roll. So all this is done at a nice, slow pace. You've earned it, so take your time. And then if you want, you can just finish out rolling out your quad. I mean, you're down here, you might as well. Okay, so for $8, this softball is a pretty useful tool, and you know what? It travels well. The lacrosse ball, one of my favorite tools. I bought mine, I believe it's Sports Chalet, because they come in a set of 3. So I'll use one singly, and then I'll tape the other 2. Now, when used by itself, I primarily use this to roll out my back, because as I mentioned earlier, my back gets really tight from cycling, and also from sleeping on the couch, but that's a whole nother matter. But what I like about this is it's smaller than the softball, so it really gets into those hard to reach areas, especially on my back. Now, a lot of people will use a tennis ball, and that's perfectly fine, but I prefer the lacrosse ball because it's smaller and it's denser, so it's going to give you that more intense deep tissue work. Now, ideally, I like to go to the wall because I can get a lot more leverage. So what I like about using the lacrosse ball up against a wall is that it gives me a lot of leverage, so I can target those areas that are really hard to reach. So again, I'm just going to roll up and down and move side to side. So again, wherever I'm feeling tightness, and then I'll hold it there. Again, this is the key to all this myofascial release. Hold it when you find those tight spots. And ideally, if you can, hang on to something or have a wall in front of you, because it's going to allow you to push your back into the lacrosse ball and just give you a little bit more deep tissue work. This is just really wonderful. If you ever had a deep tissue massage, this is a really good runner-up, because the size of the lacrosse ball kind of mimics the thumbs of the masseuse. So again, getting into that hard to reach area. And believe it or not, just moving your arm allows you to open up areas that probably need some attention. So that's it. That's the lacrosse ball on the wall. Again, very effective way for you to incorporate some deep tissue work into the areas that are really tight. Now, if you don't have access to a wall, you can still use this and get a really effective deep tissue work on the floor. Now, because I'm really aware of my body, I know where my sore spots are. So I just place the lacrosse ball typically on one side of my spine, where that muscle area is. And if you've ever had a deep tissue massage, try and mimic what the masseuse does. I know it might be a little challenging, but trust me, once you start doing this, you'll understand where your sore and tight spots are. And then again, I will just roll it back and forth. And then when I get to my upper part of my back, I like to get on my forearms, because then I can have a lot more leverage, and then push into the areas that are tight, and then move it around. And then I'll roll down to my low back as well. And again, being able to push my low back into the lacrosse ball really gives me some good deep tissue work there. Now this I can do all day long, because I tell you, my back just gets really tight. And then when I find a tight spot, I'll hold it there. I'll hold it there. And then if you want, you can just completely lay on your back. And I also play around with my leg position. Believe it or not, by lifting my leg in the air, it opens up a whole new area that could use some attention. That just feels lovely. Now I also use the lacrosse ball to roll out my gluteus medius. Remember that smaller muscle in your butt that I talked about? Now because it's smaller than the softball, I actually think it does a better job of really working that muscle. So again, I'll just roll it out. And when I find a tight spot, which I always do, I'll hold it there. Again, ideally, at least 15 to 30 seconds. And then I'll open up my leg and work that piriformis muscle. Because again, that's another one you don't want tight, because then you got sciatica issues. And if anybody suffered from that, you know that's not fun. And then again, I'll roll that area between my butt and my thigh, working it out. The only area that I don't use the lacrosse ball on are my hamstrings. Because it is a larger muscle, the softball really is a better choice. Okay, I also like to use this. Remember I talked about that hip flexor area? Well, believe it or not, because this is smaller than the softball, sometimes I can get into those really tight areas, especially in my groin area. So again, between the softball and this lacrosse ball, and stretching it out on that foam roller, you've got a great set of tools to keep this area nice and tight free. This is great. This is good stuff. So one other area I want you to pay attention to and not forget about are your feet. This is a great way for you to roll out the bottom of your feet. You know, it's the first point of contact, so we want to make sure this gets just as much attention as the rest of your body. And it's really simple. You don't have to spend a lot of time doing this. You just want to make sure you just kind of cover your bases. And then obviously you're going to do the other foot. One other stretch I do want to show you, since we're talking about the feet, is stretching out the top part of your foot. So all you're going to do is just stretch out that front. And I move my foot side to side, because you don't want to forget about it. This can get tight too when you're doing whatever activity you do. And especially if you're a runner, we tend to neglect this. And those are two really simple ways for you to stretch and get some myofascial release into your feet. Now, the two lacrosse balls taped together, I primarily use this when I don't have access to my PVC pipe or my foam roller for rolling out my legs. It's also a great tool to travel with. You necessarily don't want to pack your foam roller. Well, maybe some of you do, but for me, I like to be able to put an extra pair of shoes in there. So for this is great to travel with. And again, you're going to use it just like you do the foam roller or the PVC pipe. So it's great to roll out your quadriceps. And the IT band. So again, when you're rolling out your quads and your IT band, again, just like the foam roller or the PVC pipe, you're going to go slow. And then what's really nice about this is it does a really good job of getting into that hip flexor area. And then you can hold it there. So again, you're using it just like you do any other equipment. And again, your hamstrings. Really nice. And don't let the size fool you. This does a really good job of getting into those hard to reach areas as well. Then you also want to roll out your calves with it. Just like so. And you can also use this for that anterior tibialis muscle I mentioned. Actually, this does a really good job. Because of the two balls taped together, kind of gives it a cradle for your shin bone. So you really don't have that risk of rolling over your shin bone. And the size of that lacrosse ball really targets that muscle nicely. So sometimes I actually prefer using the two lacrosse balls taped together for this area than I do the foam roller or the PVC pipe. So what I also like using the two lacrosse balls taped together is to roll out your back. Your spine sits right in between the crevice here of these two lacrosse balls, and then the ends of the balls target the tissue on either side of the spine. So again, it gives you a really nice deep tissue work. And again, I will press my low back into it to give you that nice deep tissue work in your low back, and then you're just going to roll up. And I have to tell you, this is kind of a nice abdominal work because you kind of have to hold yourself up a little bit. And then I just roll it out. And just like all the other pieces of equipment, if I find a tight spot, I'll hold it. So two lacrosse balls taped together is just a nice replacement for the PVC pipe or the foam roller. And again, it travels really well. Okay, my latest find is called the Miracle Ball Method. And all they are these two 4-inch vinyl squishy balls that are designed to strengthen and realign your spine. Now, I gotta be honest with you, when I first came across these, I was thinking, well, how are these gonna do anything for me? Because I was so used to working with the softball and all the lacrosse balls, you know, those that are really targeting the deep tissue work. So I realized this is a really nice complement to the foam roller, or you can actually use it in addition to, because what's nice is the size, again, gets into those areas that are really hard to target. Now, when you buy these, I think it's less than 20 bucks, so they're very inexpensive, and I honestly think they're useful for anybody, especially if you're suffering from any type of back, neck, or shoulder pain. And when you do buy them, they come with a little booklet, so you can read through it and get a better understanding of the developer, her name's Elaine Patrone, and how you use them. So again, since I suffer from low back pain, I primarily use them in those positions, so I'm going to show you how I place them. Now, you're going to want to place them wherever your trouble areas are, but for me, it's my low back, and this does a great job of stretching out that area. And breathe. The developer, Elaine, she talks a lot about making sure you're breathing properly through this. So I'm going to listen to her. And again, it's all about getting that oxygen into those really tight areas. And again, I'll just move around to where I find another area that needs to be stretched out. Another great place to use them, I found it to be on my shoulder. I'm one of those people who wake up with stiff shoulders because I sleep on my side wrong. I don't know how I end up that way, but I do. So if you're one of those folks who wake up and like, geez, I slept on my neck wrong or I slept on my shoulder wrong, this is a great way to stretch it out. And again, you just find that place that's tight and let it hang and relax. This is relaxing. That's the Miracle Ball method. Very useful tool for anybody. Again, no matter your activity level, especially if you're suffering from any type of neck, back, or shoulder pain. So those are the 6 tools and techniques that I use on a pretty regular basis to help me stay injury-free. So my tip to you is, if you are not already incorporating some type of stretching or myofascial release into your training program, I highly recommend you do so, because the last thing I want you to do is suffer an injury that could have been prevented. Because all these injuries that I've been talking about, the IT band syndrome, any of your piriformis issues, those don't happen overnight. They happen over time. So even if you're feeling good right now, now is the time for you to start doing some type of stretching or myofascial release.